Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a new edition of On the Mark TV and radio here on 89.5 FM WSKB, on Westfield Community Programming, Agawam Media, and Southwick Community Television. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today, and our first guest is Stefan Czaporowski, who is the superintendent of the Westfield Public Schools. And school's back in session, and how are things going, Stefan?
They're going pretty well. Aside from the little heat wave we had at the beginning of the school year, we've gotten through that, so things are settling in nicely. Our transportation's pretty much ironed out, and the weather is cooperating, so the school's not too hot anymore. So we're in a good place.
What are some of the innovations that the school district is starting this academic year?
So we have here at Westfield Technical Academy, we have a new cabinet making program, and it's a Chapter 74 certified program, which means it's been approved by the state, and it's another career path for students that are interested in the construction trades. We also have a new Chapter 74 approved program at Westfield High School for criminal justice, and so students that are interested in a criminal justice career can go to Westfield High School now and take coursework and leave with certain competencies and have a leg up if they want to go on to college or if they want to go right into the world of work in the criminal justice field. We've also expanded our preschool programming to add another classroom. So we have 2 classrooms at Southampton Road last year and this year. Then we added another classroom at Highland Elementary School this year. And we added another classroom at Munger Hill Elementary School. And then what we've done as well is we've made Fort Meadow, which is our early childhood center, tuition free. So all of our preschool seats in Westfield are now free of charge for families that live in Westfield.
That's fantastic. How many kids are enrolled this year?
So we have 60 plus 174, so about 234 right now enrolled in preschool, which is about double of what we would have normally at this time.
So what about in the elementary, middle, and senior high schools?
So we have over 700 students at both in the Westfield Intermediate School and Westfield Middle School. Westfield High School, their population is about 1,000, a little bit over, which is where we expected it to be at this point. And here at Westfield Technical Academy, the enrollment is 575. So our elementary schools are staying about steady. Our enrollment is about 5,000 students. It was projected when we did our new elementary school project that our enrollment would be lower, but we haven't really seen that happen. So we are very healthy and in terms of enrollment, and we love all of our kids. So come to our schools.
Well, you've certainly done a really great job with Westfield Technical Academy. I know that you were the stand-in principal for a while,
last year.
Yeah, I'm so impressed with the programming that's available for kids, particularly in the graphic arts and in broadcasting and graphic design and stuff like that. They're getting training, and also the aviation and the culinary. They're getting training that really can find them jobs the minute they graduate.
Absolutely. You mentioned aviation, and actually, in a couple of weeks, I have a meeting with Gulfstream and the airport manager, Chris Willenborg at Barnes, because they want to talk about ways that we can expand our aviation program. Because the demand for aviation mechanics is so high. Obviously, we're graduating 14 a year. Half of them will go right into the workforce. Half will go on to continue their education. That's been the statistics. But Gulfstream wants more employees, so we're going to see how we can do that for them. And students that are graduating from, say, our aviation program that go right into the workforce, or our manufacturing program, or really most of our programming, will make a very good living coming right out of high school if they choose not to go to college. Or they can go to college. Some will work part-time and mix and match. But I think the tide has changed, certainly, because I know when I was a kid, everyone was expected to go to college, right? I think that has changed a little bit with our current world and economy and areas of need in terms of skill set for employees.
Yeah, I think it has changed. The high school that I went to, 99% of the graduates went to college, and that was what was stressed from the day you started in ninth grade all the way up. And there were no other options. And the public school here in town where I live is also college oriented every step of the way.
College or career, I think, has to be pushed. And I think what's also changed is the cost of post-secondary education, particularly colleges and universities. The cost has increased exponentially from when I was in high school, and I think it becomes very challenging for our kids now. It's not as it was before, where you could probably get some grants and some loans and things of that nature to help pay. You do get some of that too, but the average cost of college has skyrocketed, particularly over the last 10 years. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, people are graduating, if they had loans, they're graduating with the equivalent of like a home mortgage in payments that they have to pay back. So it's not always the best path for everyone, and there are other options out there.
No, I agree. I think that for people that take loans to go to school, they're basically owing somebody for 20 or 30 years after graduation. So they've got to be sure that whatever they major in is going to find them a great job.
Absolutely. I mean, and we are expanding, by the way, our early college programming here and in Westfield, because we do believe that students should have that option. So right now we have students can take English and English 101 and English 11 for early college and history. And so they're stretch courses that they're taught at Westfield High School and here by a Westfield State professor and our own teacher. And so students can get up to 6 credits their junior year and another 12 credits their senior year by going up to the college. So that's at Westfield State or the university. But what's interesting is, so now we're at the table with STCC to offer similar types of experiences for our kids. Now, our students that are enrolled in early college, they don't it doesn't cost them anything. So if we do have students that want to go to college, we like to promote this early college pathway as a way to, one, prepare you for college better, because the best way to prepare someone for college is probably to take college courses, right? And the stretch course in 11th grade buys them time to get accustomed to the workload and things that happen in a college course. But now STCC wants to do it. So I love the idea. Anytime we can promote opportunities for our kids, but even one semester's worth of credits is certainly a savings for our families and for students. And I do dream down the road of our students being able to graduate with even more than 18, 21, maybe 30 credits would be great.
Oh, that's awesome. Post-pandemic, what have been the biggest challenges for you as a school superintendent bringing the schools to the level they're at today?
I think that as a society, I think we saw, not just our students, but just as a society, there's a level of dysregulation that developed because of the pandemic. And I think it was an end of routines. There was some certainly lost educational opportunities and employment opportunities during that time. And I think what we also see is some of the mental health. There was a mental health crisis before the pandemic, and I believe the pandemic has exacerbated it. So I think, we have extra counseling. We have a partnership with River Valley for our students so that they can get counseling if they have. A lot of our students run a waiting list. So I think that it's the behavior, the mental health concerns, certainly the learning loss. Those have all been obstacles, not just here in Westfield, but I think across the nation. But I know across the state with other superintendents that I've talked to. So, but this year, as we get continuing to move past the pandemic, I think that we're getting better all the time. But the one thing that does concern me, of course, is that COVID seems to be making a comeback right now.
Are you concerned about that? I mean, is there a high numbers among the student body and faculty?
So
do you think you'll go back to masking or anything like that?
I don't think that, but even right now we're following the CDC, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and local health department guidance, in saying that if you have symptoms or you have to have a positive test, to isolate for 5 days, and then we don't require, but it is recommended that you wear a mask for the next 5. But we are starting to see, I just got to look actually today at some of our first attendance data since the school year started, and we're seeing that there are staff and students that have been out with it, certainly more than last year already. But I think, you see it in the news too. It's coming back. There are some states, but I don't think it's at the severity of the level where it was, 3 years ago.
What are some of your goals for this year in moving the school department ahead?
So one of the things we're going to be working on or to develop, I should say, is something called a portrait of a graduate. So, times have changed a lot since we were in school, Mark, and so we're looking to see what do we basically from the students, from our staff, and from community stakeholders everywhere, what do they think is the skill set that a graduate needs today in today's day and age as compared to what, in the 80s or whatever? It's changed a lot. And so we're going to be working as a community to develop this portrait of a graduate and define those skills and what they look like. And then we're going to backwards plan. So here we're going to have what a final product should look like, and then we're going to plan from 12th grade down how we build that product. I mean, I know it sounds a little manufacturing right now, but I'm just saying the students are more than a product. I understand that. But I'm saying that we need to build our system to provide, to make sure that our students have the skills to be successful in today's world. And, it's interesting, you talk to students, what they think that they need in some of the pre-work we've done does often align with what the adults think too. So it's been pretty impressive. But by the end of this year, Westfield Public Schools will have a portrait of a graduate. And so this is the skill set that we would like our graduates to move on after high school with. I think that's a very good thing.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting proposal because, again, no kid is the same.
Right.
So when you build into this portrait the kids that have unique skills that others don't have.
Right. And I think, it's interesting. We did sample some students here, and some of the things that they did ask, they think a graduate should be able to know how to work with money and finances, for example. And we do offer financial literacy here in Westfield. But I thought it was interesting that the students identified that as a need, right? They also identified, how to work well with others, because in a world where we collaborate with more and more people than ever, you need to be able to develop relationships and be able to work well with your peers. They also wanted to they want to see, again, this was a small sample from here, but I was impressed with the fact that they want to learn how to drive at school. And back in the day, I mean, I remember when I was in high school, we did have a driver's ed program in our high school, right? And I know they used to have it at Westfield High School, but we haven't had that for decades, and now the kids are asking for it. So I thought that was pretty interesting. That they want to learn how to do that here. So I'm actually going to look into that because I think that does provide our students with some great opportunity. And there is not a drive. I guess that's a little play on words, right? There is not the drive that the kids, that when I turned 16, I went for my permit right away and I wanted my driver's license at 16 and a half. You don't see that drive anymore from the kids. It's not as important. I'm not sure what's happened with that, but I know when I was a kid, we wanted our license as soon as we could get it, and you just don't see that sense of urgency anymore. But the fact that they identified it as something they want to learn before they graduate, I thought was great.
Yeah, when I went to high school, my high school did not offer it. So I turned 16 and I went and took a driver's ed in Springfield and then got my learner's permit and then waited a couple of months until a school vacation to go take the driving test.
Right. Imagine if you could do that through school.
Yeah, it would be so incredible.
Yeah.
So you're working 24 hours, maybe 48 hours a day, 7 days a week. What do you do to get away from it all?
So I think like this summer, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to Toronto. I love to travel. And I think going to new places is very interesting and exciting. I'd never been. I'm also trying to see every baseball stadium in the country. So that was the initial impetus to go to Toronto. But even when I'm home, I know this sounds strange and people probably think I'm a bit odd. I like yard work. I like doing landscaping, and I don't even mind mowing the yard. I do enjoy that, but I enjoy being out in nature. So I think that's probably why. But that's what keeps me sane during my downtime.
I think that's amazing.
Winter's a struggle. I'm going to be honest. No landscaping in the winter.
Well, I didn't do any landscaping this summer. I let the weeds grow. I tell people it was a natural look. I wasn't going to take it. And some of these weeds are 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
But one of the things while I was in the hospital, I had no mind for doing anything other than watching videos. and I would hit YouTube, and I got into foraging for all things. I don't know why.
Wow.
That I would go next year and harvest spruce tips and violets and make jelly from them, and pine cones and make pine cone syrup and all this stuff. It's now in the back of my mind. I will be in the woods starting March of next year, almost every day looking for something.
That's terrific. No, nature. I think don't ever underestimate the power of nature, right? In terms of how it affects us, our mood, our motivations, and things of that nature. Nature is beautiful, and I think.
How many ball stadiums have you seen on your quest to see them all?
So I'm 22 down. I have 9 to go because there's 30 teams, but I count the Montreal Expos because that was one of the first stadiums I ever went to before they left and moved to Washington. So I've been to 22. I have 9 left, and most of them are kind of the oddities, and a few of them are out on the West Coast. So I look, it's been an interesting ride in that every stadium is unique. It has its own feel. It has its special food. The bratwursts with onions and peppers at Milwaukee, probably still my favorite food. Although I'm a Yankees fan, as a lot of people know, but I do think Fenway Park has probably the best hot dogs that there are at any stadium I've been in. So the Fenway Frank is number one.
I have a colleague of mine from public radio, an elder woman. She's probably in her mid 80s, and she and her husband made a vow to see every single stadium across the country. And I think they have 2 left to go.
That's terrific.
But what a great hobby.
It is, but you also, when you visit these places, it's not just. It probably isn't the only. For me, it's not the only reason I would go. I enjoy going to different parts of the country and just. We're a little different, right? Every place you go is a little bit different from what we know, and I enjoy learning about that and people watching and the different slangs that come with every area. Just the different. Everything's unique, and I think it's. I think it gives you a good idea of what the country's about.
What did you like best about Toronto?
So the baseball stadium actually is old, but when I definitely liked that. But and they were opening the roof because it was probably the first stadium that had a roof that opened and closed. And the day I was there, they were opening the roof. So that was cool. But what I didn't know about Toronto is they have the Toronto Island. So you can actually take a ferry from right where the baseball stadium is, and you go to the Toronto Islands, and they have several beaches on Lake Ontario, and I didn't know that. So I took the ferry and went over there. It's not something that you would expect to find in Toronto. You don't hear, there's great beaches in Toronto, but there are. The food was terrific. I had lots of good food, and actually, I didn't find it to be too expensive because after you do the exchange rate from American money to Canadian money, it was pretty. It wasn't overly expensive, and I enjoyed my trip to Canada. And I did drive, so it was pretty. Their gas is really expensive, though.
Yeah, I've been a couple of times for work, and on one of those Toronto islands is a little airport, that Billy Bishop Airport that Porter Airways flies to, and I flew the last time I went to Toronto from Boston.
Right to there.
And the landing, and looking at you're landing in downtown Toronto. It's just exquisite.
Well, when you're coming back on the ferry and you're seeing just the Toronto skyline, it is impressive. It was really impressive. If you've never been, I would encourage you to go. And then on the way back, because I had never been to Niagara Falls, I spent a couple more days in Niagara Falls on the Canadian side. So it was one of the better vacations I've ever taken.
Did you ride that boat that goes under the falls?
Yes, the Maid of the Mist, I think it's called. Did that.
You were definitely Stefan the tourist.
I was very touristy, but I had never been, and I had never seen Niagara Falls. And one of the things that I didn't even know that they did this, they had fireworks every night at 10 o'clock on the Canadian side. And the lights, they light up the waterfalls with all different colors at night. And it's really just beautiful. I mean, where I got a little wet on the Maid of the Mist, but even if you're up against the wall, toward the Canadian Falls, you still get the mist back up at you. It was really, again, I had never seen anything like it, and I had wanted to see that. So instead of just driving right by it, I stopped for a couple days and checked it out. And there are things to do on the Canadian side. I've been told the Canadian side is the side to go on in terms of activities, and I found that to be pretty accurate. But there's like a whole street and a whole neighborhood of fun things to do, places to eat, and some amusement park rides. It was really fun. The one thing I was not brave enough to do though is to zip line over Niagara Falls. That wasn't happening.
It wasn't happening. That maybe for your next trip.
I'm not afraid of heights. I saw other people doing it, and I was like, "Good for them." I don't know.
I'm afraid of I'm afraid of heights too, and I live with somebody who zip lines and bungee jumps and all that.
I
don't know
can't
how
do
they
it.
can do it. No, it's beyond me. Where's the next vacation?
So I'd actually like to go to Montreal next summer because I haven't been there since I was in my 20s, and I would like to go back.
Montreal is one of my 10 favorite cities in the world. I could go to Montreal all the time.
And I haven't been in probably 25 years, and I really would like to go again. And what's interesting is I'm half Polish and half French, and my mother actually moved here when she was 14 from the Montreal area. So I still know a little French from time to time because I learned.
The best sandwiches at Schwartz's Deli in Montreal. That's the best sandwiches in the world.
I will make a mental note of that.
So if people want to learn more about the programs that the Westfield schools offer, they're moving to Westfield or they live in a contiguous town and through school choice want to send their child to a Westfield school, how do they learn more?
So I would go to the website of the school and even our district website. And we do have a district brochure which kind of gives a rundown of each level, like the elementaries, the middle and intermediate, and then the high schools. But then I would tell you to reach out to the principal of that school because their emails are all available on the website. And just the top right-hand corner says administrators, and then all their emails are available. And ask for a tour of the building too, because we are very happy to give those to families that want to be prospective students or are either moving to Westfield or want a school choice. We have a great group of principals, and they're more than happy to give you a tour of the building so you can check out what we offer. And you can see the programs happening. You know, here at Westfield Tech, they do Wednesdays at Westfield at WTA, and we do have students come in and they'll shadow another student for the day in a program if they think that that's something that they're interested in. So we've had students, for example, shadow in culinary from another school district to see if it's a shop or a program that they'd be interested in. And then they see it and they apply and they want to come here. So I think the best thing you can do is to see it in person, but you can certainly contact any of the schools to get more information to get that ball rolling.
And one thing I wanted to mention is that the Westfield schools have a fabulous music program.
Absolutely, they do. And so we've also been putting some funding toward our music and art programs here in the district. And last year we had. Through school choice funding, we were able to purchase all new uniforms for the students in the Westfield High School band. We were also able to purchase through school choice funding a pretty awesome piano for the chorus program. And then we were able to secure an earmark through Senator John Velas, and we were able for $25,000, and we were able to purchase all new instruments for the students at Westfield Middle School. And then most recently, we received a donation from the Gerald Patrick Estate to support the arts here in Westfield, which is our music and art courses for $100,000. So we have a very strong music and art program. In fact, the donation that came in was from Gerald Patrick said that he wanted to give back to the school that really developed him into the artist that he became. And I think that for me, when we have alumni that are graduating and remembering, the skill set that they learned when they were in Westfield Public Schools and then giving back to the school after they pass or something, it's phenomenal. And I've never worked in a district where I've seen so much of that happening. So I just think I still maintain this is a great place to work, but a great community to work in.
Well, Stefan, you certainly have done some great things with your colleagues to build the Westfield Public Schools into something unique and different. And the arts are certainly a part of it.
Absolutely.
I've been to a couple of the concerts, and then when I work with the musicians of the Springfield Symphony, and we're fortunate enough to rehearse at the middle school
Right.
auditorium, the kids that come out of the woodwork to watch, there's a real interest level in the arts, and that's so missing in so many schools up and down the valley.
Agreed. And really, I mean, if you want a well-rounded education, and I think that's what we all should have, the arts have to be included, whether it's music or art classes or both, really both.
Do you miss not teaching? You were a history teacher for quite a while. Do you miss not being among the kids every day?
I do. And for as long as I've been an administrator, I miss it. You know, for the vast majority of educators, you go into the position of education because you want to be able to help students moving forward. And so there was a balance for me in terms of being in the classroom or being an administrator, and where can you have more impact. I'd like to think you have more of an impact in an administration role, but I know you have direct and immediate impact in the classroom with the students that are in front of you. You know, it was interesting. I started my day today going through various schools and walking through classrooms and seeing the amount of engagement from our students, and it's really. You know, and the questions that they ask, and it's just the interactions with young minds and people that are learning and that are just curious and ask sometimes not so great, but most of the time awesome questions because they really they just want to know. So I miss that interaction. Even when I was a principal, you had more interaction than I tend to have now. But I get myself into the schools when I can so that I can keep that connection and remind myself why I do this every day, which is for the kids.
Last spring, when I was one day, there were kids wandering in and out of Studio 120. Oh, they knew who you were. I mean,
Yes.
and one guy says, "Well, I know him real well." And I thought, that's great that you have that opportunity to interact and get from one school to another.
It helps keep you focused. It really does. We do this for the children, and sometimes there are forces outside that are impacting our position that have nothing to do with Westfield at all, but and kind of bring you down a little bit. And the kids always bring you back up.
Well, Stefan, thanks for being with us this morning. You're one of my favorite guests.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Folks that listen to this station know that Stefan has his own program. When is that? On Thursdays.
Thursdays,
right?
from 9 to 10, Superintendent Spotlight. And and there are all new episodes coming up. So tune in and you'll learn a little bit more each week about Westfield Public Schools.
And this is one of our new episodes. And Peter Coles is chief engineer for both of our programs.
Yes, he is.
Thanks to him. And this wraps up another On the Mark. We'll be with you next Wednesday. We hope you'll join us then. Thanks for listening and watching.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donuts shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield. Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome to an all-new On the Mark TV and radio program here from Westfield Community Programming, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Agawam Media and Southwick Community Television. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and we're glad to have you with us. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. And there's a big event that takes place in Hartford every year that you want to know about because it's free and is a showcase of all the things arts that are in our neighborhood. And Julia Pistell is one of the coordinators of this event. And Julia, I'm glad to have you on board today.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. It's really the highlight of my year every year. So sharing it is a passion.
So what do you do the rest of the year when you're not working on Nightfall?
Sure. Well, my main gig is I'm the managing director of CT Improv, a improv comedy theater in downtown Hartford. It's actually Connecticut's only dedicated improv theater. So I lead a merry band of actors and comedians most of the time, and Nightfall is really an extension of that. Because it's got all kinds of performers. So we bring our improv skills to Nightfall as well.
Most people up here in Western Mass have no idea what Nightfall is. So
Sure.
give us the basics. I mean, I know it's free to the public, but when is it happening, and what is the format of it?
Yeah, I think the big question of what is Nightfall, sometimes it can sound very mysterious. But what it is a show based on the beautiful giant puppets designed and built by the genius artist Anne Cubberly. She lives in Hartford and she's been making puppets that are 6, 10, 12 feet tall, and they are operated by dancers and musicians and actors, and so it's really like a festival culminating in this show. So during the day there's food trucks, there's activities, people picnic, but as the sun sets, we try to keep it as mystical and close to nature as possible. So as the sun sets, you are visited by these giant, beautiful spirits. So some of the ones that have been built in the past for the show are a water goddess who's 10 feet tall and is followed around by little water droplets. We have a giant bear who can dance really well. And then we have things that are a little smaller, like human size. So I always play a squirrel, and we've got porcupines and badgers and all kinds of birds. So, yeah, it's really a mysterious musical dance festival that it's really cool. It's really, if it sounds bizarre, it is, but it's really magical.
And where does it take place?
So one of the best things about Nightfall is one of its missions is to highlight Hartford's incredible park system. So Hartford has these beautiful public parks, and one of them, this year we're rotating through Bushnell Park, which is, the crown jewel of downtown Hartford. It was designed by Frederick Law Olmsted before he designed Central Park. So if you want to be a park nerd about it, it's just a great park to walk through and experience this gorgeous design of grass and pathways and everything. So we'll be in Bushnell Park this year, but in the past we've been in Elizabeth Park near the Rose Gardens. We've been in Keeney Park, which is this giant, very wooded area in Hartford that's absolutely beautiful. So we one of the things we try to do is get folks who aren't from Hartford to come to Hartford and love Hartford for what it is and this beautiful resource that we have, which is our
Now,
outdoor space.
it's got, you'll have to refresh me on the date, but it's also got a rain date, correct?
Yeah, so we are slated to do it on October 7th. This is the 12th year, and in all the years we've done it, we've only used the rain date once, and that was last year. But this year it seems like it has rained every single day, Mark. So,
Maybe
uh,
we're rained out now, but it seems that rain is always upon us.
yeah. Um, I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she just thinks it rains every day now. That's become her new reality. But anyway, the rain date is just the next day, the Sunday, October 8th. So most likely we'll make it October 7th, and if not, we'll see you there on October 8th.
And I know it's free to the public, but how many people show up for this every year?
It's funny. The first year, I think the creator and the actors thought that it would just be this tiny little group. But right from the start, Nightfall has attracted quite a lot of people. So we expect a couple thousand people. I would say 2 to 3 thousand people this year. Um, so what I would recommend, what my family and friends always do, is grab a picnic blanket, grab your lawn chairs, pack a picnic, and come sit in the park, get a good spot because you'll want to be able to see the action. So yeah, a lot of people, for them, it's the experience that they have this beautiful day as summer is turning into fall, and then they get to watch a show. So I'd show up early and get a good spot.
And who are some of the people involved? I mean, your group um, is involved, but who are some of the other arts groups that participate?
Yeah, so the one thing that's very exciting about Nightfall is who it involves. So we try to involve as many Hartford artists as we can. We've got um, a lot of collaboration going on. So for improvisers, we have CT Improv, as I said, but we also have composers who are local, Eam, and a composer, Kyle Grimm, who is also a professor at the University of Hartford. We've also got a huge number of dancers, and dancers dance with a million different studios, but off the top of my head, we have the Deja Vu Dance Studio. We have a lot of dancers who are instructors at Morlock School of Dance. We've got a whole bunch of those folks and many more. I won't be able to list every every dancer. But we've also got even more. We have puppeteers that have learned through this experience, and we also have the African drumming troupe Friends World Music, who are just amazing, and they'll be doing a live performance in the middle of the show as well. So
So
yeah,
it's really a cross section of the arts community in Hartford, as opposed to the major arts organizations.
yes, exactly. So it's not like you go to the Hartford stage or um the ballet or any of that. Those are all absolutely wonderful, but we're not associated directly with any of them. These are the artists, especially young artists, living and working in Hartford, trying to make a living through dance or composition, or what have you. And they got to come together and truly collaborate. This year we have written the show collaboratively, we're directing it collaborative. There's just a lot of cross pollination. So some people who may have come on board a few years ago as a dancer are now writers, and dancers, or we have folks who came in as visual artists to help build the puppets and the props, and now they've learned how to be a puppeteer. So there's a lot of learning and sharing, and that means it's got a lot of really good creative energy. Very, very collaborative and very fun and weird.
As somebody who's not directly connected with Hartford Stage or Theater Works or the Symphony or the Wadsworth, which are the main arts
Yeah.
groups in Bushnell, how do you perceive the arts community in Hartford?
That's such a good question. Um, well, you know, I don't work directly at any of those organizations, but I think the arts scene in Hartford is very strong because at the end of the day, it's a really small town and a small community. So I personally have friends at each and every one of those places. We work together. Everyone likes to collaborate. It's been a tough few years, of course, with COVID. So everybody's trying to just survive, which sometimes results in a lot of cool creative projects and sometimes involves everybody going off to their own little corner and making sure they're okay, which is fine and great. But I think that the arts in Hartford are vitally important to the city. I mean, like the most exciting part of the city. And if those places didn't all support each other, we'd be dead in the water. So it is through coming together and going to each other's events, visiting each other's spaces, sharing artists, sharing resources that we have all managed to survive through the pandemic and beyond.
Now, here in Western Massachusetts, we have a very strong community arts presence in all four counties, but there is no real centralization point. Springfield, which is the same size as Hartford, only has an orchestra and a museum. and
Mm.
the theaters are small. So I'm curious, when I see a large arts community of individuals and small organizations working together, what would be your lesson to other cities and towns on how to collaborate?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, the theater scene, which I know the best, is a great example of this. My advice would be to try to avoid thinking of anybody as a threat or competition. So, for example, in the theater scene, we have one improv theater, we have one really cool black box theater, TheaterWorks, we have Harvard Stage, a regional theater, and we have the Bushnell, which is a giant theater taking on touring productions. So it would be very easy for any of those theaters to feel competitive with the other or, tense about that relationship. But a thriving city would have all of those things from tiny to huge. And so what we're working together to do is build the audience and build the audience's love of our art form. So we're all here to serve an audience. And so the more we can each provide and contribute, the better off our audience will be. And we want people to come to our tiny little improv theater and then the next day go see John Oliver at the Bushnell. That's great. That's A+ for us. So I think having that collaborative attitude is what I would really advise. And I'll say one more thing, is because this is a very Nightfall thing, thinking really creatively about who you can collaborate with. So the first well, before Nightfall was in the parks, Anne would create these puppet shows in the Wadsworth Atheneum, which is a visual arts museum. So, not the most obvious collaboration. She could have gone to a theater, but an art museum had space for that kind of performing art. So, the more you can collaborate, the more exciting it is. And the more you can involve young artists and give them opportunities because they will bring a lot of energy, new audiences, and just new ideas.
Tell me more about the improv theater.
Oh, sure. Oh, bonus. Sure. So our improv theater, we opened up in 2016. We are run by a small group of us, and we put on shows, 5 shows a week, 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and 1 on Sunday. It's a lot of shows. Every show is different. But it's such a great time. And especially when thinking about COVID, people really are wanting to come out and laugh and have fun in a room with other people. And that has just been so wonderful to bring back to the masses. So yeah, we try to keep our tickets between $10 and $15. So it's a cheap night out, a simple good time, and we do all kinds of really cool shows. The next show that I'm in next week is an improvised Stephen King movie. So that's the kind of stuff we're throwing on stage at every chance we get.
And where do you perform?
Our theater's on Asylum Street in downtown Hartford, so right in the middle of Hartford.
Okay, is there a website that people can learn more about the
Yep,
production?
they can just go to ctimprov.com. And then for Nightfall, they can go to Nightfall Hartford. And both of those are also on social media as well. So if you just search around for CT Improv or Nightfall, you'll have plenty to find. And with Nightfall, you can take a look at these incredible giant puppets. Even if you can't make it, you can see it on Instagram, and they're amazing.
Okay. How long does it take to put a Nightfall together? When did you guys start planning for 2023, and when will you start planning for 2024?
Oh, it's a continuous process, like any creative process. We start writing the show around February, and then we cast it and start writing the music over the summer. And then we do very intense rehearsals for about 6 weeks leading up to the show. So yeah, when you're really creating something from scratch, it can take a good amount of time, but it is absolutely worth it. And sometimes Anne Cumberly will create a new puppet and we try to write them into the show. So right now, this morning, I was working on adding a couple of new puppets into what we're doing. So it's very fluid. We're always adjusting, we're always changing things, right up to the last minute. And that is what makes show business exciting.
Since Nightfall is free to the public, who picks up the tab for the puppets, the musicians, and everything else?
Yeah, that's the question when you're working with a nonprofit that has free events. So since we are a nonprofit, we are very lucky to have many sponsors and small businesses that support us. We've got different kinds of individual donors who will donate to Nightfall. We would love even more support this year. We're always trying to make sure that people can contribute, large or small, if they love the event. So folks who we even have donation buckets at the end of the show. So folks who throw us $5, like it really goes directly towards paying an artist. It's a very simple organization at the end of the day. We just do a few things. So everything that is contributed or donated or earned, it really helps. So that's my pitch for folks to go online and toss us a donation. Whatever you would pay for a ticket for a really cool, mind-blowing show, if you would donate that on nightfallhartford.org, we would just be so grateful.
How many people are involved in this year's production, from the artists to the puppeteers to the staff that helps run it and all that?
Yeah, I'd say about 45. There's about 35 people in the show, um, between all the dancers and musicians and everybody. And then another nice group of people who are not in the show but are working, helping to fit the puppets on folks, run things backstage, run our tech for the show. We have really wonderful lights and sound for the show. It's a very professional production, so we have a nice tech crew who works really hard to make this the most wonderful experience possible for the audience.
How did you get into theater and improv and Nightfall? What drew you to theater?
Sure. Well, I did improv. I did theater in high school and everything like that. And then I took a long hiatus where I was doing other things like writing and working. And then when I moved to Hartford, actually, I moved in with my boyfriend who said he was going to take an improv class at Hartford Stage. And it was my first night here in Hartford. And I was like, I guess I'll just come. So I just showed up at this class. I didn't register. I just appeared, asked to join, and in that class was the group of improvisers that eventually turned into CT Improv and became really my closest friends. So we just really enjoyed working together. We made each other laugh. We were really ambitious. We wanted to do a lot of shows. So we started out just doing one show a month in the City Steam brewery basement, and then everything snowballed, and we did so many shows per year that we were able to build up an audience and a big cadre of performers, so that we could open our own space. So it was never something I intended to do, but it was something that, sort of happened over time. And then the way that we got involved with Nightfall is that Anne, the creator of these puppets, she came to an improv show and she thought, it was very cool. So she invited a couple of us to play squirrels in the first Nightfall, which was in 2012. And really, my husband and I have been squirrels ever since. We've occasionally had a dally into being a mole or a centipede or some other creature, but at the end of the day, those squirrels are comedians and we're always back in those squirrel suits.
What a great career. What a great
Yeah,
career. I mean, to
it's
think
been
that you
great.
went from doing some high school theater to becoming an improv person who plays a squirrel. What do you like best about improv?
Oh my gosh. You know, I think that a lot of people come into it with the idea that it's just fun or it's about being funny. But as anyone who's done a lot of improv can tell you, the philosophy behind improv is really just this humanistic point of view on the world that is just really lovely to carry with you into other places. So all the principles that we take into our comedic scenes include things like make other people look good or listen really deeply or agree with the situation that you're in and build upon, contribute. Don't shoot other people's ideas down. So my favorite thing about improv is getting into that flow state of positive agreement. It's really wonderful. And the other thing, my favorite thing and my least favorite thing about improv are the same thing, which is how impermanent they are. So when you've done something terrible, like when you have just a bad show, bomb show, it's over. It will never happen again. You'll never perform those that way again, or you'll never have to deal with a cranky audience like that again. And that's a relief, right? You can try it, and if it doesn't work, you let it go. But if you have a great show, you also have to let it go because it will never happen again. So some of the most fun and inspiring moments of my life have been doing improv, but I will never get to revisit them, which is just such a incredibly wonderful philosophical journey to go on every single night.
Is there a
So yeah.
reason why you wouldn't record your performances for archival purposes?
We do record for our own sense of reviewing them sometimes, but improv is really about the audience. The audience gives you ideas, the audience gives you suggestions. In a show that I do once a month called Chatterbox, we interview audience members about their day and then do improv based off of that. And the audience in the room is getting to see you create something live. So that's really special. And a recording cannot capture it. Although there is some good improv on Netflix.
Now, are there any idols that you have in the improv industry, or people that you think are really good at what they do?
Yeah. A lot of improvisers have broken through to the mainstream. I mean, the big one that comes to mind is Amy Poehler, who created the Upright Citizens Brigade with 3 other folks. But there are others. I was just watching last night The After Party on Apple TV, which is a murder mystery, and that is so brilliant, and it's written by an improviser, Anthony King, and it has many improvisers in it. So a lot of the great media that we're seeing now is created by people who have done at least some, and in some cases a lot of improv. So an improviser's point of view is coming through. And I'll give you one more example. Another idol of mine is Jordan Peele, who's the king of horror right now, but he is a sketch writing genius, and his whole staff was improvisers as well on his show Key and Peele. So yeah, my heroes would be Amy Poehler, Jordan Peele, Anthony King. They're all doing amazing things in the comedy space.
Maybe 10 years or 20 years ago, Second City, the improv group from Chicago, a lot of them morphed over to Saturday Night Live.
Yep.
And like Martin Short and Gilda Radner and stuff like that. And also a lot of the SNL people have an improv base because they have to improvise doing some of their work.
Yeah. Another show that I've been watching, I guess I've been watching a lot of TV lately. Only Murders in the Building I've been watching religiously.
I watched that. I love that.
Martin Short is just like la creme de la creme, right? And he's got an improv and sketch background. So that kind of like joie de vivre and being a little weird, that's a pure improv style right there.
Yeah, it certainly is. Before we run here, just recap Nightfall so everybody knows when it is, how to get information.
Sure. It's on October 7th. Food trucks and activities will start at 2 p.m. The show starts at sundown around 6, and we will see you there in Bushnell Park in downtown Hartford.
With the rain date the following day.
That's right.
Okay, we've been chatting with Julia Pistell from this wonderful improv in Bushnell Park with puppets and all that. I hope a lot of people show up for it.
Me too.
Julia, thanks for being here today. It's been a joy to learn about the program, and I hope, as I said, a lot of people show up for it. It'll be great, and it's free. And that wraps up another edition of On the Mark. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. I'm Mark Auerbach. We'll see you next Wednesday with another edition of On the Mark.
So, Kimberly is Kimberly, and Levaco is
LEVACO. Oh,
I'm going to start with the K first because that's one of the hardest letters.
oh,
Ka.
oh,
Ka-ke, kilo.
oh,
Killer, cola, E. coli, broken, yoko, yam, yak, lamb. Oh, I just found mackerel!
I like the way you see the world. I like your point of view. A little sly, a little strange, a little bit askew. I like the way you look at life and think outside the box. A little odd, a little off, a bit unorthodox.
Libya.
I like your point of view.
Yicky, Mickey, Ricky, Icky.
I like the way you make a point. I like your frame of mind. A little quick, a little sharp, a little beat behind. I like the way you crack a joke that no one else will get. A little dry, a little droll, a little dumb, and yet
Okra, cobra, marble, barley.
I like your point of view.
Bravo, cello, limo, Rio, macro, micro, mayo, bakery.
Oh, with the turn of a letter. Oh, everything's better. I wonder how you see the things you see with a change of perspective. Nothing's defective. I wonder what you see when you look at me.
My eyeball, icky earlobe. Over, clover, liquor, lickable, likable, lovable, livable, liver, my liver, my Oliver, my locker, my blocker, my blacker olive, my rockable veil, my crab like love. Oh, that's awful.
I like the way you understand. I like the way you think. A little weird, a little wise, a little out of sync.
Clever, ever, clever. Wait a minute.
I like your point of view.
Clever, cleaver, limber, Kimberly.
I like,
Kimberly Levaco turns into
I like.
cleverly akimbo.
You,
Cleverly akimbo.
you.
That's a pretty good one. I did my grandmother's name and got Arabian beard.